In this video, we'll be spending a week driving through the beautiful Alpine regions of Austria. This is a country that is overflowing with natural beauty throughout its wine country and mountain roads, with stunning cities also dotted throughout the countryside that exude class and host amazing cultural experiences at every turn. You'll hear plenty of familiar names throughout the country, including Mozart, Beethoven and Schwarzenegger. And of course, Julie Andrews. Well, not so much her, but you'll find plenty of places that are featured in that famous movie, The Sound of Music. And did I mention the wine country in the south? While often overlooked as part of a road trip itinerary, this area is full of picture-perfect hills and has a much more mild climate than when you get high up into the mountains. Austria really is a diverse and beautiful country, and it's up there with my favourite road trips that I've done so far. And as always, check out the description for a full list of places we visited, hotel stays, and links to various activities. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way in. We start our road trip after a couple of great days in the capital, Vienna. You'll need at least 2 days here, but you could easily spend a week immersing yourself into all of the various museums, music experiences, food, and the Baroque architecture that is on show everywhere you look around the older parts of the city. Highlights included landmark buildings such as the Schönbrunn Palace, St. Stephen's Cathedral, and Hofburg Palace. Then you have a long list of museums to check out. My favourite was the Albertina Museum, where you can view works done by Monet and Picasso. And of course, you can't leave Vienna without a night of Mozart's classical music. I was quite surprised how much of this music was familiar to me, and I had a realisation halfway through the show that I'd learned almost all of them from Bugs Bunny cartoons as a kid. A full video on our Vienna experience will be coming soon. But for now, we're excited to hit the road and start heading south towards the city of Graz and beyond towards the Styria wine region. On the way, we stopped off at the Regensburg Castle, an imposing 1,000-year-old structure that sits on top of an inactive volcano with sheer cliff faces on all sides, the first of a long list of amazing castles that we were going to see on this road trip. I found this region to be very confusing. We had planned to drive along the South Styrian wine road and stop at all of the wineries along the way. Near the start of this route was another vineyard we stopped in, but everything seemed closed. Accessing the long driveway to reach the vineyard was no problem at all, but everywhere surrounding seemed like a ghost town, which we thought was very strange. Not far away was the turn-off for the wine road, and on approach it became obvious that the road was completely closed off. Some of the smaller roads that went through the region were accessible, and we stumbled across at least one winery that was open. The view there was amazing, the wine fantastic and also very cheap, so at least we didn't leave empty-handed. The scenery was lovely, but it was quite a detour for what turned out to be a single winery visit. But I was still happy with the day and being able to see the beautiful rolling hills of the region. But if anyone knows why the road was closed, please leave a comment below because I still have no idea. Time to head northwest in the direction of the mountains and towards some of the more popular destinations throughout Austria. About an hour to the north is the city of Graz, where I hope to make another small detour to the Arnold Schwarzenegger Museum. But despite our early exit from Styria, it was still a race against the clock to get there before it closed. The museum is just his childhood home in the small town of Thal. I'd only learned of its existence recently through the Netflix documentary Arnold, and I thought it would have been a great experience to see where it all began for such a fascinating guy, even if it was only for half an hour. Unfortunately, a single wrong turn on the freeway led me into one of the longest tunnels I've ever been in without an exit. The 20 minutes this cost me made it impossible to get to the museum before closing time, so I had to let that one go. But it was an unplanned stop, so I wasn't too bothered. The next day, we were planning to visit the popular town of Hallstatt, So all that remained was to find a hotel as close as possible to Hallstatt so we could get as much driving done and start fresh in the morning. We found a 17th century ski lodge hotel with a restaurant attached on the ground floor, so the late arrival allowed for an easy dinner and a well-earned rest. I knew that Hallstatt was a small town that can get very busy and that we should aim to get there early. This turned out to be a huge understatement. We were slow to hit the road and then had a 1-hour drive left to get to the town. And by then it was far too late. There are car parks in the town, next to the town, and then overflow car parks with very long walks back into the town, and even they were all full. By the time I could stop the car, this was my view. So, to clarify my original statement, it is a tiny town that can get very busy, and you must get there before 9 AM if you're going to have any chance of arriving by car. So even if you're road tripping your way around the country, this is one destination where you might be better off just taking a bus from one of the nearby cities such as Salzburg. This was the first of two big disappointments on this trip, both being a direct result of my own poor planning. So hopefully, this video helps you learn from my mistakes when you're planning your own itinerary. But missing out on Hallstatt just meant we could head into the Alps sooner. Before leaving the region, it's worth pointing out that not far from Hallstatt is the well-known Sky Ladder or Ladder to Heaven. This is part of a larger climbing route to the peak of the mountain Donnerkogel. This is a more serious undertaking than a standard hike in the mountains, and not something we were looking to do, especially in the poor weather we were experiencing so far. But it's a popular activity and looks absolutely amazing. But instead, we were headed for something a little less taxing physically, but no less beautiful, the Eisriesenwelt Ice Cave. The ice cave is located high in the mountains just outside the town of Werfen, and about half an hour's drive from Salzburg. The big tourist drawcard in this region is the Sound of Music Trail, which is just nearby, and you'll see the familiar looking Hohenwerfen Castle on the drive up towards the ice cave entrance. It's a bit of a process to get there. You'll have to navigate the mountain road, a busy car park, a long walk to the visitors centre, then more walking, a cable car, and more walking again. However, you'll be treated to some incredible views along the way, unless it's a particularly cloudy day, like it was for us. Once inside the cave, it is quite dark, so the video footage is not the best quality, but some of the photos are absolutely amazing and give a much better feel for what it's really like inside this magnificent cave. The round trip of the tour will take you a little over an hour, and up to 90 minutes depending on the pace your guide sets. Everything is on a walking platform with lots of stairs both up and down. It's dark and it's slippery, so you'll need to be careful and hold onto the rail most of the way. This was one of the challenges I had in getting this footage, because you don't want to slip with a phone in your hand, or you'll probably not have a phone anymore. Once back outside, we could see our luck had changed with the weather for the trip back down. The sun had broken through the clouds, and we could now see the incredible views in all directions. So not only was the ice cave amazing, but the weather gods are on our side, with a huge cloud of fog mostly blowing away. So on the way down, we can finally see the view. And it is absolutely sensational. And I would have happily made the trip up the mountain just to see this glorious view. So after the disappointment first thing in the morning, we managed to salvage what was a wonderful day. I again had no problem finding a last-minute hotel room. We were heading in a southwestern direction, deeper into the mountains, with our target the next morning being the Grossglockner Alpine Road, in the small mountain village of Zellerfusch. The Lampenhaus Hotel was a very similar style to where we stayed the night before, and once again there was a restaurant in the building, which was a welcome relief after another long day on the road. So a couple of seagull lagers, a schnitzel, and some apple strudel was a pretty good way to finish off the day. Waking up to the fresh air and beautiful mountain views along the Fuchs Valley was a great way to start the day. The only dampener was the scattering of cloud that would make or break our experience as we drive along the Grossglockner high Alpine road. I had really been looking forward to taking on this 48-kilometre stretch of winding road that travels at an elevation of 2,500 metres that snakes its way around some incredible mountainous terrain. There are usually jaw-dropping views everywhere you look. We had a mixed bag due to the cloud and heavy fog in some sections. We occasionally hit blue skies, only to be swallowed up again by the rising mist. This did not stop me from enjoying the sheer beauty and scale of the mountains all around us when we could see them. Complete with snow-capped mountains and relatively mild temperatures, all things considered. I was happy enough just in shorts while walking around. You'll pay a big toll fee to access the road, which was upwards of €40, but the roads are high quality, very safe, and the experience is worth every cent. The fee also includes entry into a number of exhibitions along the route. We skipped over most of these just to focus on enjoying the magical scenery. The only real disappointment for the day was that we hit thick cloud where the peak of Grossglockner mountain would have been visible. If you are just doing the drive, you can do it over a few hours with plenty of stops along the way to take in the view. If you plan to do hiking as well, you'll also need to give yourself at least one full day and possibly stay overnight. While we did want to do some hiking, the weather wasn't great and a little unpredictable. So we'd save the hiking for that afternoon, where we would head a few hours to the west towards Olpererhütte and that famous suspension bridge, all while continuing to hope for improvement in the cloud cover. One upside to the patchy weather is that we were able to find a parking spot with no problem despite arriving mid-afternoon. The round trip for this hike takes around 3 to 4 hours depending on your pace. If you take the most direct route possible from the second car park past the entrance, the trail is clearly signposted and easy to find. As you can see, there are multiple ways to head into the mountains if you wanted a more challenging or immersive day.
So believe it or not, this is probably the best weather we've seen in 2 days. The clouds are very high and you can see there's a gap right there. And the forecast is for lifting cloud and for hopefully some sun to peek through to really light up this lake. You can see it's got that beautiful blue color. And you can see the sun just on the ledge there. We need it to get down a little bit more. Hopefully the clouds are moving in a favorable direction because it's already beautiful. A little bit of sunlight and it'll just light up.
All you need to do is follow the rocky staircase that zigzags its way up the incline. While there are some steeper sections, it's an easy hike considering you climb around 600 metres by the time you reach the mountain hut. Speaking of which, you'll rarely come across such a perfectly placed building. The views back over the Alpine lake with the snow-capped mountains in the background is simply stunning. There is a restaurant inside, or you can enjoy the views from the deck with plenty of outdoor seating. If you're not yet tired of walking uphill, there's an even better vantage point just behind this mountain hut that I'll add to my list of the best park benches anywhere in the world. And here is me attempting to show you just how much I enjoyed it. And if you want to get real cheesy, you can add your padlock of love to the big heart right next door. Now, onward towards the famous suspension bridge. As with any insta-famous destination, you're probably going to have to get in line if you want to snap that sought-after picture. However, because we arrived so late in the day, there was only one other group there at the time. So it was easy to alternate and have a few goes at it. Now all I need is an Instagram page. The surrounding area also has plenty of great spots for pictures overlooking this glorious lake. You may also get the chance to interact with some of the sheep wandering around, but for the most part, you're better off leaving them alone. As we headed back down the mountain, we started to see more and more blue in the sky. but the sun was well over the horizon by this point, so unfortunately we were unable to see the lake glow to its full potential. And before leaving, we took some time to explore the water's edge, have a walk around this huge dam wall, and enjoy the view just a little bit more. It had been another big day, but I still had a sizable drive ahead to make it to the city of Innsbruck for the night. The last-minute hotel booking this time was far less charming and on the edge of a more industrial area about 5 minutes from the city centre. But the room was fine, the mountain view still very nice. It did, however, require us to get in the car once again after arrival just to find something to eat. And despite being on tired legs, it was a good opportunity to check out the city centre in the evening. The waterfront area that runs along the Inn River was my favourite. There were markets, bars, and picturesque bridges and houses, along with a very lively atmosphere. We eventually settled on a restaurant in the old town, with the city tower in sight. Another great way to finish the evening, but left us completely spent after a huge day. Later today, we would experience the second major disappointment of the trip. But this would not happen until we left Innsbruck, so we still had the morning to head back into the town and explore the city in full sunlight this time. Highlights included the main shopping street of Maria Theresian, the Golden Roof, and the Hofburg Imperial Palace. Innsbruck has its charm, but it didn't really grab me as much as Salzburg, which is later in the video, so I was keen to get back on the road a bit earlier than planned. If you are staying longer, then also check out the Bergisel ski jump and the Nordket cable cars, which takes you up to an elevation of 2,300 metres for some spectacular views back over the city and the surrounding Alps, all from very close to the city centre. After a week of clouds, we'd finally struck a perfectly sunny day. I wanted to head back into the mountains as quickly as possible and decided to take a small detour over the border into Germany to visit the Eagle's Nest while en route to Salzburg. And this leads me to the last big stuff up of the trip. To visit the Eagle's Nest, you have to book a shuttle bus from the car park to take you up the mountain and back down again. Your ticket is for a specific bus at a specific time slot in both directions, and you must book these in advance. Through my own lack of attention to detail, when I was booking 2 tickets, I mistakenly thought I was booking a time slot for each person for the outward journey from the car park up the mountain. So I had booked both at exactly the same time. Turns out, these time slots were for your bus up the mountain and then back down again. Mistake number 1. Then, the traffic from Innsbruck to the Eagle's Nest was much slower than the navigation apps estimated, so we arrived with not much time to spare. Mistake number 2. Then, on arrival, the parking lot was impossibly busy, and by the time we found a spot, our bus was long gone. Mistake number 3. You cannot rebook for another time slot, and all trips that day were sold out. It is up to the bus driver's discretion whether they let you onto another bus. And let's just say we were abruptly shooed away. All completely my fault, and I was very disappointed at the wasted opportunity, especially on such a stunning day. I still beat myself up just a little over this, so hopefully my mistakes will help you have a much smoother time if you're visiting the Eagle's Nest. And from my point of view, I guess Germany, especially the south, will have to be on a future road trip adventure. I checked the website at the time of making this video, and it appears they've made the booking process much more user-friendly, with a clear separation of uphill and downhill legs, and it now looks idiot-proof. I swear it was different before. After descending the mountain, a nice blue mountain stream caught my eye on the side of the road. It looked like a nice place for me to sulk for 15 minutes before continuing the drive to Salzburg, which was to be our final stop on the Austrian road trip. Now, I mentioned earlier that I enjoyed the old town of Salzburg much more than Innsbruck. The castle was grander, the architecture had more charm, and I just found it a very pleasant city to explore on foot. I don't talk about food much on the channel, but there were two enjoyable experiences that went beyond the usual Austrian fare of schnitzel and strudel that are worth mentioning. The first being a very gimmicky but enjoyable beverage from Nur Coffee. Make sure you drink it quick. The second was a local egg soufflé dish called Nockerl, which both looks great and tastes incredible. The restaurant was Meisel and Schaden, but I'm sure you will find this in many other places too. Highly recommended. Towering over the old town is the 1,000-year-old Hohensalzburg fortress. It dominates the skyline and is a stunning backdrop to many other sites in the old town. Not far from its base is the bustling town square of Residenzplatz, where you will find highly skilled concert pianists doing their thing in the shadows of the castle. In the surrounding area of the old town, you'll find plenty to do, including the shopping street of Getreidegasse, Mozart's birthplace and museum, the Salzburg Cathedral, and Universitätsplatz. And if you are still hungry for more Sound of Music experiences, there are a number of filming locations around the city. There are dedicated walking tours for this, and I'll link to some of these in the description as well. You can leave the old town via the Lovelock Bridge and head over the Salzach River towards the Mirabell Gardens. At one end is an elevated platform that overlooks the flowers, fountains, and the castle way off in the distance, and I could not think of a better place to capture the beauty of Austria and wrap up what has been an amazing road trip adventure.